sent the meeting minutes, it bounced back and it says I
I was
cannot.
gonna say, 'cause I didn't get any meeting minutes.
You probably have the money.
Yeah, but why would it? Are just coming back up, right?
It's got a fairly decent explanation for his budget, but I don't see the, let me see what bottom line is here. Okay, I see it now. What are we, $1,100,000 deficit here?
Already balanced, I think.
You don't lie.
I think you should open it in, waiting for the town administrator.
With it being 7 o'clock on Thursday, March 7th, I call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee. Start the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just waiting for town administrator to return. We'll hold off on the approval of the minutes from our February meeting until our next meeting, just so that everyone can review them. Just waiting for you.
Did you already do the pledge and that
You
stuff?
did.
Here is. There are two of these. Anyone else see the town budget? No, thank you.
Everyone need the monthly?
Mr. Town Administrator,
Yes.
I've been sitting on this board for close to 25 years, and this is the best budget I have seen.
When you say the best,
The presentation of the budget, not the amount, just the presentation. I mean, the explanations here leave nothing to be really wanted. If you read carefully, we don't even need you here.
I agree, so.
You wanna go home?
I'll go eat some donuts. You can go. All right, so let me pull up the accounts. All right, so if you don't have it, then you can see it, but we can go through it all line by line. I'll tell you what I'm worried about. So we're doing this project downstairs for, to redo the basement. One of the things is we have these heating systems, and so the heating system, it had one in the room, but we reconfigured the space, and some of the space that was there was storage, and so it didn't have a HVAC unit. So we had to get a splitter to come in and install another one, and that was a little bit more money than I was expecting, but we'll be okay. I'm trying to get a lot done with that money, and we're painting town hall, things like that, trying to make it look nice, so I might have to transfer some money to cover buildings and grounds costs, but I think it'll not be an issue. I talked to Kenny about snow, and he's expecting it to be about $120,000 over the $150,000 budget, which actually is pretty good. So the last 3 years, I think we've been like 300,000 over the budget. No, sorry, the budget was 150, and we spent 350, so about $200,000 over the budget. So I think we can cover that within the budget by the end of the year, making transfers out of places that might have a little bit extra money. So that's the hope. We probably will need the Finance Committee's reserve fund to do that, though, but I don't see any other need for the reserve fund. So that.
Why did we go over budget on the snow if we didn't have that many snowstorms this year?
We're able to budget that low, correct?
Yeah, right. Because
We
we
budgeted 100,000 low, which we never did in the past. We always budgeted high so that it would always be consistent.
So we budgeted $150,000. Well, certainly have for the time I've been here, and as far back as I can see, it's been $150,000, and we have routinely spent about $350,000. So we're about $80,000 less than what we normally would be. So a little bit lighter, but winter. I mean, I think we also don't realize, like, every time there's like a little bit of rain, they still have to go out. So we may not think that there was that many snowstorms, but there were a lot of events still.
It was a wet winter, just not
Yeah.
snow.
To the chair, sir. Did you get any formal complaints? I know the media was full of them about misuse of town vehicles during the snowstorm.
During the snowstorm?
Yeah.
No, I didn't get any complaints.
Social media was full of them. That's why I asked if you got any official ones.
No. Are there other concerns? Anything else you want addressed? I feel like we just,
Is there anything else that really jumps out from what you saw?
no.
That you can think of? No.
No. I have a list of where I worry about stuff and then where I think we have extra money. I'll just pull that up real quick.
And through the chair, we've already talked about the town accounting department
We did.
maintenance transfer. So that, the basement project, and then the snow and ice and transfers.
So when, we budgeted, how much did we budget for snow and ice?
150.
150.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this at our last meeting, the library energy is a little bit, we don't know how that's gonna turn out. If that turns badly, they do have, state aid money that they could use to pay for some of that. Also on the report, it shows that the library materials budget is way overspent. That's because they bought a lot of materials to equip the new library. We got approved to have that money transferred to the construction budget, so that'll be actually quite a bit under budget once that journal entries signature.
Is everything with the library all,
Yeah, we are good. We got the last pay request. Sorry, we have one very minor pay request that we'll get in like May. A couple of punch list items that are outside that, the tree wasn't, I think it was buried too deep and they need to bring it up. A couple things like that, so they can't do those till the spring. But it's like $11,000 is all that's remaining.
and all the payments that we were supposed to get back?
So we negotiated an agreement that we are very comfortable with.
Any other questions concerning the monthly budget? So we will move on to old business. Water filtration plant update.
I couldn't make the meeting this week.
Or do you have a sort of update?
Yeah, I met with, so we have an active water sewer commission now. They met for the first time today, and so they gave, Greg, the superintendent, gave them an update. Things are going well, everything's on budget. They have enough contingency that, if you recall, 2 Octobers ago, we approved an extra $350,000 for a contingency amount. It looks like we may not even need that at all. So that is a good thing. They are a little bit behind schedule, but they think in the next week or so they'll be able to get the building weatherproof, and that they can throw a lot of work grants in the building and catch up and get everything online by the date, by July 1st.
It's supposed to be operational by the summer?
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's consistent with what you've heard in the past, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we'll move on to the budget update for the town and school. So we did get a copy of the school budget, and we did get a date that they'll be able to come in and explain it, which would be March 21st. We'll talk about that when we schedule the next few meetings, but that'll be the date that the school administrator, I believe the superintendent will both probably come in to explain their budget. Now, this proposed budget's their 4.3% increase, correct?
Yeah, 4.2, but yeah.
So, I plan, as I said, we'll schedule a meeting later, but we have the budget, so you can mark any items to discuss with the school administrator, the superintendent for that meeting at the end of the month. And then, as Mike said, we did get a copy of the town budget. Is this on the website now?
It's not, so when I sent it out to department heads and you guys, came back a couple typos, so I did fix those, but I'll get them out on the web soon.
But as Mike did say, you know, it's all explained, it's all laid out in a very readable and understandable manner, so and that'll be good enough just for us, but for anyone in the town that wants to look at it and kind of see how things have progressed. Does anyone have any questions with the budget as it sits right now?
So I got a brief presentation that'll highlight it. Are you good with that?
That's great.
Alright, so if you remember a year ago, we sat here, we had school committee and selectmen, and I don't want to sound like we were overly dramatic, but it was like, we are going to need an override in a year, and there's no real question about it. But here we are a year later, and we don't need an override, and this is how we accomplish that. So in the budget, I have new marijuana host agreements budget in there. That's about $150,000. Well, that's what I put in. That's what the host agreements that I requested them to pay. We haven't actually signed those host agreements, but that'll happen soon enough. We bid out the savings in our general, in our general liability insurance. It's about $130,000. That doesn't make sense. Also, our street lights, We had planned on having to pay some debt for those, but we were able to get grant funding for that, so that saved us about $87,000. Also, the fire rescue truck that we were able to pay with cash on hand. I originally had that budgeted as a debt that we had to pay on in FY20. We've reduced or eliminated a lot of positions in the last couple of years. So we had a part-time engineer, we had a part-time benefits coordinator, the collector. Through the charter change, we'll be eliminating that position. An assessing clerk we've reduced, the treasury clerk we're eliminating, the chief chemist we've eliminated, the parking clerk we eliminated, and the secretary to the board of selectmen we've eliminated. Also, we use the State Qualified Bond Act. So originally our debt estimates had a higher interest rate. Now that we are able to use that, that was an estimated savings about $80,000. And then we are doing health insurance. So reformed, the new health insurance plans will save about $340,000. So that gets us to the point where we don't need an override. So I'll go through the revenue. We have about $200,000 estimated for new growth. The 2.5 increase would be a little over $500,000. The debt exclusion, this is a much bigger number than normal, so a lot of debt is coming on this year. So that's a $410,000 increase. And so in November, when we're looking at the budget, or when we're setting the tax rate, we have been lucky enough to have it be dropping pretty well the last several years. I mean, I haven't done the analysis, but with that big of a debt exclusion coming on, I don't foresee it going down.
Excuse me, while you're on the subject, to the chair.
Yep.
I see the town accountant back there. Do we have any high-interest loans that can be rebid out for lower interest to save us some money?
I couldn't give you that answer right now. I'd have to check with the treasurer and find out what the interest rates are on all of our debt.
So when we did the State Qualified Bond Act, we took a couple of them and rolled them into that. And so those were actually just water and sewer, so it didn't really affect the general fund. But we did look at it, and all of them we don't think we can get a better interest rate.
If my memory serves me correct, originally we had hoped to take some of the loans that were going to be complete and maintain the payment schedule and do the capital improvements. And we would always be constant with our payments. Are we still on that? Are we still on that thinking level, or have we changed it?
Right, no, so I agree with you. So your thought is, we have budgeted this much for debt. As debt drops off, just keep that same budget, and the difference we can use for capital projects, so we don't have to borrow for them in the future. I think that is a good plan. However, this year, the debt budget went up, not down. So, but this year should be our max year. I don't think there should be anything new coming on in FY21. So that could be the plan going forward.
Through the chair, when does the filtration plant come in?
The debt starts this year. I mean, that's also
the debt
enterprise
fund.
fund. We did get a good jump in state aid, a little bit more than I was expecting, so that also definitely helped. And like I said, the host agreement. So overall, the budget's increasing $2 million. Last year, it was like 1.3, between 1.3 and 1.4. A lot of that difference is because of the debt exclusion, so that's $400,000 more that we're funding in the budget. Okay, so moving on to the expenses. So this is how, actually a year ago when I put the budget together, I said we're gonna have problems in a year, so we need to figure out now how to split the budget. And I was thinking more how we're gonna fight over who's gonna cut what, instead of what we're gonna fight over on the new growth. So we have $2.1 million in new revenue, and we have $1.2 million in new costs in our shared services between the town and the school. So that includes the debt, the state assessments, overlay, retirement assessment, unemployment, health insurance, Medicare, OPEB, insurances, school crossing guards, and student transportation, because those last two are budgeted for some reason in the town side of the budget. So if we take out that, there's $900,000 left. For the past several years, if you take out the shared costs, the town is 30% of the budget and the schools are 70%. So that's how I split the budget this year. Towns get 30% more, and schools get 70% of the budget. So that equals to a 3% increase for both the town and the school. So overall, it's a 4.6% increase. We're up to almost $48 million. The school department's $21.6 million. Like I said, 3% increase, which is $630,000. They did request the 4.2%, so that's $250,000 roughly less than what they requested. If you look at just the town budget, it's $9.1 million with an increase of $270,000. That's a 3% increase. And then we have the shared cost, which is $17 million. And that went up 7.4%. And of the $1.2 million, $760,000 was an increase in debt principal. Any questions on that? So these are some of the major changes in health insurance, in expenses. So the first one's health insurance. So this shows the insurance budget actually increasing, but if you recall last year, we discussed going into the GIC, and the unions weren't all that into that. So they agreed to forego their equity in the health trust fund. That was $330,000. So in actuality, the last year's health insurance budget should have been $330,000 more. But like I said earlier, the 2020 renewal versus our current Blue Cross plans versus what the joint purchase group is that we're looking at joining is a $340,000 savings.
To the chair, the police officers, 50,000. Was that originally the school resource, or was that a sidewalk policeman paid by a grant?
Right. So the police officer salaries went up $50,000. That's wasn't the real jump's not that dramatic. It's just that last year I offset it with some of the grant money from the Fells made a donation a few years ago, and they re-upped it, and I don't have any of the police officers now being funded through that donation. So retirement, that's going to keep growing. Did they say 6.5%? Is that right? Yeah. So that's $213,000 this year. So that'll keep growing at 200 plus each year. And if you 6.5% growth is obviously faster than our revenues are growing. So that's going to always eat up more of the budget than in the future than it currently does. So I eliminated the board of selectmen clerk and the treasurer collector clerk. I also greatly reduced the clerk in the assessor's office. So there is some money still in there for a part-time person. Like I mentioned, debt service is going up. Police officer salary, OPEB, we have typically budgeted $10,000. I budgeted at $100,000. Still not a whole lot of money when you're talking about $20 million in liability, but at least it's a good faith effort to show that we're starting to do something. I also increased retirement buyouts by $60,000. We've had a few people already commit to retiring in the next fiscal year, so I increased that even more than I had increased it for the FY19 budget. State assessments did go down. Hopefully those stay down. These are based off of the governor's numbers, and the schools is a $630,000 increase.
The police officer salaries, so that 50,000 was the grant last year, but didn't we also increase the amount of officers going into next fiscal year?
So not the number of budgeted officers, so we increased that for the FY18 budget, we added one more police officer. But this year, we had one that was out on long-term
Okay.
disability that he has now retired or will be retiring for next year, so that'll be another actual officer that will be in place. And then, we've had, I wouldn't say trouble, but we've been filling new
We're
positions.
just filling in the positions that have already been budgeted for previously.
Yep. So sometime in FY20 will be the first time that we've been fully staffed in a long time.
The retirement, to the chair,
Yes.
the retirement, are we within the legal limitations that were set forth with the retirement on the day, amount of days where they can accumulate?
Yeah, so currently the law says you have to be fully funded by, it's 2040, right? Yeah, and we're currently at 2032, is what the new schedule will be.
I thought we were ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll be funded by 2032 when we could have 8 more years, so, yeah.
Are most of those retirement buyouts and the retirement up on the top there, the is that mostly school or is that just strictly the town?
So the retirement number on top, that's our pension assessment number, so that's equally split just based on the number of employees in town versus school. This retirement buyout, that's just, when somebody retires, we gotta pay for their accumulated sick and
Sick
vacation.
time,
and that's what
vacation
that is.
time, yeah.
And that's strictly town side.
But we are within the legal limitations that were set forth a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well on retirement. So Worcester Regional System, they're like, I don't know, they're below 50% funded. And Tim, you have any idea what?
I think it's 58%.
58?
We're at 58?
Yeah. Any questions here?
If I may,
Of course.
so at the last retirement board meeting, Doug alluded to, we voted the 6.5% or 6.5% rate instead of 6%, which I believe for FY20 will cost an additional $17,000, and I think an additional 32 or 33 for 2021. But over the actuarial life through 2032 or 33, it will be, if we were to continue that rate, it would be a savings of around $770,000
Over the long.
over the span, right. Unfortunately, most of that savings would be seen in the final year. That's why we elected to do it.
Still $70,000.
Right, if we had taken that money, like if we selected the lower rate and put that money into savings each year, I think we would have had to have investment return of almost 12% to get the same savings over that period of time. And with an expected investment, long-term investment of 7.35% thereabouts, it seemed like a good return on our money to go with the higher rate for the time being.
Yeah, I like to tease Tim that he cost me $17,000, but in the long term, it's a good thing. This is just the health insurance explained a little more. So the town, the savings is like $320. That doesn't include the savings of when we do retirees, so that'll change that slightly. But the employees are also saving money. They'll also save 7%.
Is there a lot of pushback with that?
We had a good meeting this afternoon, so we have to sit at the bargaining table still, but I feel the most comfortable now about it than I ever have, so. and just, yeah, so there is no plan design on that, there's no primary care doctor changes needed, no hospital changes, and there's a greater coverage for those that are out of state. So we're gonna join with United Healthcare for anything outside of New England, outside actually Maine and New Hampshire and Massachusetts. So it actually is a much better plan, especially if you live out of state or have someone, a dependent that lives out of state. And so in the budget, these are, you know, kind of little priorities like, so economic development, that's a big priority for me. So I put aside $35,000 to put in the economic development fund, which we use for facade improvements to encourage people to move to town, but, things like that. Also, $34,000 was put in for nuisance properties. So a lot of times we have trouble that there's a property that needs to come down, the owners have no way of paying for it to come down. We don't have the money either, so it just sits there forever. So this will allow us to pay for maybe 1 or 2 of those to be torn down. We'll put the lien on the property. When the lien's paid, that money will come back, and then we can use that money to tear down another one. So this is almost like seed funding, like hopefully you do it a couple times, hopefully some get sold eventually, and that money can be replenished.
But for the nuisance properties, you're gonna have to get obviously the owner's approval, correct?
Either the owner's approval or a court order, or, yeah.
Do we think obviously the properties are in bad shape. Do we think it's actually affecting the sale value by taking it down?
The sell value of,
Because ultimately that property is gonna be sold. That's
yeah,
the plan.
oh, no, by us tearing it down, it'll increase the property value. Yeah, they're that bad.
People aren't trying to come in and just, redo them, they'd have to knock them down anyways.
Yep. And then I put some money, this is kind of spread throughout the budget in the different departments, but more money for buildings and grounds. I think I mentioned last time I want to do the gazebo that's out here in the back. The ramp in front of town hall needs to be redone. But there's also a little bit of money for parks and landscaping to make things pretty. And then, like I mentioned, $90,000 increase for OPEB. Well, that's all I have on the presentation. Any questions on the budget? Sorry, one more thing. So I was gonna put on here, we're negotiating all of our union, not all of them, but most of our union contracts, and also we're doing the salary study for not only the union employees, but the non-union as well. So there is a reserve in the town administrator's budget to pay for some of those.
Any increase, you mean?
What's that?
That was the salary part that you moved over, correct? It's like $60,000?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah, right.
When's the salary study supposed to be completed?
Probably end of April.
Are you waiting for that to do the union contracts?
Yeah.
Do those have to be all completed by?
They don't, it would be ideal to have them completed by the end of June, but they can go past June. We would just have to retro pay, which would be very much a pain for Tim, so.
Sorry, Tim. Any other
Well,
questions? You have nothing else in the budget?
what's that?
Anything else in the budget?
No.
Then obviously we'll do the school later on. The fiscal year 20 capital projects. So the 3 of us should probably just pick a date. I don't think we have to, it's more just sit down and talk about it at this point, right? Because
There's no new ones.
it's just, there's no new trucks or anything like that, I believe. Nothing.
Well, there's the pickup trucks for the highway department were on the schedule.
We saw those last year.
We saw them last year, yeah. So there's those, there's like police dash cams.
Yeah, should get volume.
What's that?
Should get volume on those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
They're not doing the body cams, correct?
No.
Why aren't we doing body cams, Susan? Please,
One, they're very expensive. 2, that could be considered a bargaining
Well,
if my memory serves me correct, last year we had a private citizen with a cell phone, taking, pictures of an incident on a street, and it was totally different than the way it was explained within the, police report. The body cams will both protect the citizen and the police officer, and I don't think, it's like anything else, I don't think there's enough money to protect our patrolmen from improper lawsuits or our town from improper lawsuits.
Yeah, well, I won't agree that there was an incident that was different than the police report, but, I mean, yeah, it's a matter of priorities, is that
It isn't an isolated incident anymore. Everybody has a cell phone, and even Chief Shaw said to me, when they see a person with a phone in their hand, they automatically say, I'm being photographed. That's the mentality of our police chief, so it must be the mentality of our police officers. And I say, there's not enough money that we're gonna save by not equipping our policemen with body cams.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I talked with the police chief about. It wasn't his highest priority this year. I mean, certainly the dash cams are a necessity.
Rules are needed.
Yeah.
Can any of that confiscated drug money and
But also the-
sale of the vehicles and properties be used for body cams?
I don't know the specific regulations on those.
But just to go to your point, if we get new dash cams that record with sound, as long as the lights in the cruiser are on, that cam's gonna record everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it records
it-
everything.
It records all the video at this point, but I
Yeah.
know some of them at least don't record any sound, which,
Sounds would be
but
helpful.
the new, I'm assuming if we get an upgrade, they will, so that will alleviate some of the issue because they'll at least be recording and that sound carries a long way. It's not, you have to be right next to the cruiser. Obviously, the body cams will help if there's anything going on inside a building, but
Yeah.
the dash cams will alleviate some of the issue of there's a discrepancy between what one person is saying and what somebody else is saying. But Wally, we should set a date, maybe just
Yeah,
one
we-
day, the three of us can just sit down and go through what's on for this year, and at least talk about what's going on for next year.
Yeah. The other thing was, fire. It wasn't air packs, it was some replacement for fire breathing apparatus. But yeah, let's pick a date.
What's the, how's that truck coming along? Is everything on?
Yeah, it takes like a year. What, do you recall when that was supposed to be delivered? I think late summer.
Oh, this year?
Yeah.
Were they gonna keep the old one?
So engine 5,
Are they gonna rotate it to the School Street building?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The really old ladder one was gonna be the one that's sitting in Station 2 over here. I think that one was gonna be surplus out.
Through the chair. As far as apparatus storage goes, I see that we have multiple pieces of apparatus outside the station, boats and trailers and.
There's stuff out there.
Well, I mean, I get my concern, I mean, if we're, obviously, it should be stored inside. Especially, I think there's a brand new collapse trailer, or it's a regional asset, I believe, that's gonna be stored in town.
Yeah, so, let me talk to the chief and see,
I mean, we have two stations, I just think that we should, try and,
right,
if.
park as much inside as possible.
And I
Yeah,
mean,
for
if
sure.
there's gonna be an awful lot of equipment that's floating around if we're, and I think we should, like I said, that if they have
Yeah,
things that should be inside.
yeah, I'm trying to recall what I'd seen in the back there, but it's kind of fuzzy, so,
No, I understand.
yeah. But yeah, I'll talk to him about what we could park inside.
So move on to new business. the EMS building deed and rent that we had briefly spoke about last time. Mike was able to grab the deed, and I think I sent it out maybe prior to a last meeting. I know you did some research into it, so do you wanna just start?
Well, on the last page, it says that, when it's no longer the Webster Rescue Squad, something like that, it'll revert back to the town. So basically, it's not town-owned right now, it's under Webster EMS. We're not insuring it, we're spending no money on
And we're not spending anything for the service, correct? They're doing
Right.
it,
it. Yeah.
and they fund all their own, everything, correct? The ambulances, I think they just get a new one, I think I saw.
Yeah, I don't know when, but yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
But that's all funded through them.
Yeah, there's no town money that goes from me to them.
But they are on property that is owned by the town. There is a contract that was, to the chair, I'm sorry. There is a contract that was voided in 1984, not yesterday, in 1984. And the excuse has always been, from day one that I've discussed this with every town administrator prior to you, since 1984, is they're providing a service. We are too, we're providing a service. If I have to pay taxes and I have to pay rent and I have to pay improvements on the property, they improved the building just a few years ago. No money came to the town, there's no money. They have a very large parking lot over at Hubbard Regional Hospital that they threaten to bring their ambulances over there. Let them bring them there, and we'll rent that building out to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear in there that
It's not even that, it's a business decision, right? If you start charging for the use of the building and they're gonna start charging the
us.
town to offset that cost at some point, so.
They already did that.
Excuse me, through the chair. I've run ambulance companies. We don't want to get into that.
I very much agree.
This is, I mean, you're talking, it could, for this town, it could cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars
My only
that they
question
could
is,
charge us, just to do our EMS work.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, on all our other surrounding
The
communities.
town owns the
I'm
building,
not
they
saying
own
it
the
owns the
building and the
business.
land. Obviously, they're having insured, but is the town facing any liability because they're technically the owner? So if someone gets hurt in the parking lot,
No, that's all
Is the
covered
town-
under their insurance.
and we're confident, and we're confident they're still carrying it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, if,
hold on, Mike.
during your tenure, we lost the fishing game and the property because we didn't exercise our rights under the contract we had with them within the amount of time. What's
Wait,
to prevent Hubbard or Harrington Hospital from saying, we've been there for 20 years, with your permission, we own everything?
I think they do own it. Unless they no longer run as
Talking
a.
about the property also. I'm not talking about the
No,
building.
yeah, so that says that unless Webster Rescue Squad or their successor, Webster EMS, whenever they leave, we will own it, but until then, they're the owner.
They're not Webster we didn't deal with Webster EMS, dealt with Webster Ambulance. That's the contract we signed. They not only dissolved, but they took the last $5,000 in equity they had and got rid of that. They gave that away so that there would be a total dissolution of the ambulance service. This is a totally new ambulance service who has never contracted with the town of Webster. Why?
So, I believe that the Webster EMS is the successor to the rescue squad, so, and we could spend some money doing the attorney work to figure out how that exactly works, but even if we did that and they weren't the official legal successor, we would still sign an agreement with them to let them use that
Well,
land.
let's sign an agreement with them. Sit down, negotiate, and sign an agreement. That'll make me happy. We've done nothing since 1984.
What do you?
Through the chair.
So, I mean, all that will do is cost us some money.
Hold on, Sean had something to say.
Through the chair, like I said, I think Matt makes a great point, Mike makes a great point. The line of work I'm in, similar to Matt, I think it's not all dollar signs. My question, and I don't know that it's something for us to decide, or down the road, we look at, you know, bringing in an external, you know, company to take a look and say, I think we all understand that the town makeup where our fire department's short-staffed or understaffed. And I think that if you look around, you look at all the surrounding communities that have 24/7 fire department coverage, they also run the ambulance. And I'm not saying that that's the answer, but I think that my concern is that how are we going to get the fire department the coverage that they need with, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying take over the ambulance, but I looked at the numbers, and this is news to me, but it looks like last year we're dispatching over 6,600 of their calls. And again, they're providing the service, and it's a high-level service, so I think that that's not worth meddling in. But I do think we can't keep adding bodies to the fire department with no real plan as to, you know, what we're gonna do, or we just, you know. So I don't know that, you know, I don't know that what would Oxford say, would Dudley say, you know, would their full-time fire department cease to exist if they no longer ran the ambulance service? Maybe. You know, I don't know enough about that, but I think that, you know, I think we should have firefighters in that station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, but in order to do that, you can't just keep saying, give me, give me, give me, you know what I mean? So I think Mike makes it's reasonable to look at what we have in place. There's certainly contracts out there that are a zero bid, so that you know that there's a dedicated truck in town at all times. I don't know, you know, Webster's very busy. The ambulance is very busy.
There is another, Sean, you ready?
Yeah.
Here's one other thing. What is the ratio of calls to the 911 for ambulance services as opposed to the ratio of calls for emergencies within the town with the townspeople? And I think you're gonna find that to be about 6,000, 7,000 to 1. And they're not paying for our 911 service, they're not paying for our dispatches, they're not paying for anything. They're getting a free ride. Nobody in this world deserves a free ride on the backs of taxpayers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep, I know you're more operational than we are. However, under a 911 system, those calls are going into 911 center no matter what. And not only are they going into 911 center, we're required by law to emergency medical dispatch those calls. Okay?
We're not
So-
required by law to pay for it. We can get a percentage of that. We get a percentage from Dudley, we get a percentage from Webster. Why can't we get a percentage from Harrington Hospital?
If you got a percentage, then we're going to start paying for the EMS service.
They are gonna offset anything that we charge, and they're going to offset with
They
some
did that
sort of
already. We
expense.
started out at $35 a year, and to get a ride from here to Worcester in an ambulance is better than $400.
Mike, I hate to break it to you, but it's 2019. That's not how EMS works anymore.
I think the one thing that we should do is try to make sure that the deed is
Yes.
reading the proper way.
I mean, we can,
Just so that.
if we can just go back and say, instead of Webster Rescue Squad, it says Webster EMS.
Just
and
do
then
something, just so that it reads
call that good.
the proper way, because if this pops up 25 years from now, everyone's gonna be digging up through who fell after who and going
Yeah.
all the way back.
Through the chair.
They're not unreasonable to
Hold on,
sit down with.
Mike,
I've,
hold on.
I've sat
Mike,
down with
hold
them.
on.
Do they share their numbers with us, or is that, I mean, since they're a private
No,
entity,
they, I
don't-
mean, no, they don't share them with me. I mean, anecdotally, they've shared a little bit with me, but.
Right, yeah, I mean, the only reason I'm asking that is because, I think right now, our police officers are the first responder units in the town is based on the emergency plan or,
Yeah.
you know, and I know I've had conversations, with other people before. I mean, we have, and there's different ways to look at this, but we have firefighters in the station from 7 a.m. till midnight or whatever the case is. The police department is, in my opinion, overworked as it is. They're very busy in town. I mean, at the very least, we could begin using the fire department staff to respond to first responder calls, if the ambulance is tied up. I know, in the city of Worcester, one of the things that they do, they don't use the fire department for, low priority calls, but if there's a private entity or coming in on an EMS response, they want somebody, if it's not Webster Police and Dudley Fire is coming in on a mutual aid call, we should be using the trained personnel we have in the
Yeah.
station. And I mean, in that in and of itself, across the country, the number one source of call volume for the fire departments is medical runs. And if they're there, I mean, and then down the road, and I've said this to the chief, when they come and say, hey, we need increased staffing, you have valid numbers.
Yeah, no, right, I think what you're saying is, if we had a full-time department that, or we're staffed at night at the fire department, that would relieve pressure on the police department and provide a better service. And they
Well, I
can-
mean, during the day. I mean, why not send them on medicals during the day?
Yeah, so. Alright.
So, next item is, kind of can just take the tri-committee to public hearing and, our next meeting, we kind of talk about all at once. So our next meeting will be March 21st at 6, and that'll be the meeting that the school committee, well, the school administrator and the superintendent will come in to primarily discuss the school budget. Obviously, we can have some questions because right now their proposed budget is 1.2% higher than what the balanced budget is. The tri-committee meeting with this committee, the selectmen, and the school committee, from what I was told, is going to be scheduled for April 8th, which is a Monday,
Yeah, that's the board of selectmen night, so,
at 5.
yeah.
And we'll do the big meeting with all three groups, and then.
Is that gonna be here or at the school department?
It's gonna be here, because the selectmen are meeting right after it. And then we will discuss, if you can kind of find out our special rules for the public hearing, and then we can plan that, for the 21st meeting, so we meet all those requirements. Because I think last year we kind of ran right up against it.
Yeah, so you want the meeting on March 21st to be your budget hearing and posted as the public hearing?
No. So we'll do the school committee, Monique and the superintendent will come here on the 21st.
Yep.
At the 21st, we'll figure out when to schedule the public hearing for, because
Oh, okay.
especially we meet all the requirements for posting.
Yeah, because it has to be so many days.
Yeah.
before the town meeting, but not too many days before, so I.
Yeah, so we can make sure that we have the correct date, we don't run right up against it, and that way we can get that properly done. It'll give us time this year to actually put together our write-up for the town meeting too,
Yeah,
so we can get that to you ahead of time, maybe get in the pamphlet that gets handed out.
yeah, so,
April the 25th through the chair should be the public hearing. The town meeting's the 6th of May?
no, the week after.
It's the
Week
second
after.
Monday, second
13th.
Monday, right?
Yeah. We can do it either the 3rd of May or the 26th of April, and be within the time frame set by this.
Yeah, so we'll schedule it
Yeah.
on the 21st.
So in a perfect world, the selectmen sign the town meeting warrant on April 8th. Is that the day?
The day that we're doing the tri
The day we do it, the tri meeting?
That'll be a busy day, but yes.
So what if, okay.
So you would, yeah. I mean, the budget is just don't, The budget doesn't have to be
They signed
finalized
the
at
warrant
that
to open up the warrant.
no, that's happening this Monday, to sign the warrant. But it'll just be an article for the budget. It's not like,
Yeah.
it'll just be an overall amount.
Yeah, so then, obviously, we have to plan, our public hearing will be after that, so we'll have all the warrants for
Yep.
that. And we'll also know, the tri meeting will already happen, so we'll have some idea of
Yeah, which way it's
everyone's
going.
on the same page.
Yeah.
So the 21st will be our next meeting, 6 o'clock here, but also keep the 8th of April open. I'm assuming that means that our, calendar in front of me.
I won't be here on the 21st, Mr. Chairman.
That's what is, are we gonna have our Thursday meeting, will be that prior or will be after it?
21st.
Yeah, so what's April look like?
Yeah, so the 4th would be the first Thursday after the first Monday.
Yeah.
If you want to combine the meetings on the 8th, I just give you all the reports for the 8th.
Maybe we just go downstairs maybe?
For-
Yeah.
So that's probably what we'll do. So for the 8th, what we'll probably do is meet here at 5, do the tri-committee meeting, and then we'll go down to the Irene Martell, conference room, and we'll have our April meeting and schedule, if we have to come back at the end of April, which we may have to do. just
Yeah, you'll have to come back again
on
in
the
April.
warrants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For the public hearing.
and do the public hearing. So, that's all I have for today. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See what
Take a donut on your way out.
Got one on the way in. I'm glad enough.
Huh?
You see the people.
Yeah. Yep, they're on the way to eat. It's just those Tuesday evenings.
Yeah, that's been full.
Yep. Get the demos.
How are the new rules? Yeah.
It's actually, a lot of people are really picking their level.
Yeah.
Got a couple.
Good evening, everybody.
Two.
Any meeting under an hour is good.
Try to.
Thanks, man.